Bear with me, if you will, as I talk a little crazy. Because of the events of the recent chapter, we've been given insight to a new purpose, or should I say a deeper meaning behind Jinbe joining the Straw Hat crew. And it is in that purpose, and in me going back and rereading a lot of things that involved these three characters, Jinbe, Carrot, Yamato, that I've come to this realization that their involvement in the series is heralding in the grander importance of the Straw Hat crew as a whole, and the importance of them allying themselves with the Straw Hats in general. And a lot of that comes from the fact that they represent three different very prominent races in the New World. Jinbe representing the fishmen, Carrot representing the minks, and Yamato seeming to represent this unknown species that we haven't really thought about in terms of this story arc. But if you haven't noticed, a lot of characters in Onigashima, in Wano, have horns for some reason. And we haven't really addressed that for the most part. Yes, we also have King, who I could easily see having some relation to the Brigands, the Skypeans, what have you, the people of the moon. But it is these three that have allied themselves directly with Luffy. And it's One Piece. There are no real coincidences. It's fate, it's luck, it's destiny, what have you. But with Jinbe and his seemingly insignificant role of helmsman, because let's be real, even I was questioning if Jinbe joined, what would his role be? And to have it be the helmsman, Frankie always seemed like he fit that role perfectly. Until Jinbe took it upon himself, and he started doing it, and he did it to the greatest effect. Again, something that was recently seen in the most recent episode, where they added filler material where you saw the capabilities of Jinbe as a helmsman. He would be the one to direct and to help to guide Luffy into the dawn. But also, as Who's Who that Jinbe is battling in the newest chapter is talking about this sun god named Nika, and the fact that it was this god who freed slaves, was filled with laughter. I mean, the sun? Thousand sunny? Laughter? Going merry? These are all things that are just so prevalent throughout One Piece. And to have Jinbe, of the former Sun Pirates, Fishman Pirates, who has the sigil of the sun, being the one to drive the Thousand Sunny, to potentially be guiding Joy Boy, the newest Joy Boy, to the dawn of the new world, something significant is there. Something like the potential destiny of the Fishman race as a whole to one day be brought up to the surface, to no longer be caged underneath the sea, for the Noah to finally find its true purpose, for the so-called ancient weapon Poseidon to actually be shown for what it really is, for Shirahoshi to be shown what she really is. And that's someone who is not a weapon, but a guide to be able to bring this race up to the surface, to potentially live in equality in some way, shape, or form with the rest of the world. I mean, because when you think about it, Jinbe's dream is a lot more loftier and more worldwide than most of the rest of the Straw Hats. And that's to fulfill Fisher Tiger's dream. A world with more equality and coexistence with the humans. That's the whole reason why he even joined Fisher Tiger to begin with. To stop the oppression of fishmen. To gain some form of ground with all of this, and that he would join Luffy because he thought that there was some kind of benefit, because that felt like there was some kind of coalescence in that goal. Come on, there's some deeper meaning here, and Who's Who brought it to the surface. Jinbe sees some form of the god Nika, or even Joy Boy himself, in Luffy. He's placing his bets on Luffy being able to somehow shake the foundation of the One Piece world to create a world that no longer sees fishmen as something to be oppressed for as a commodity. Yes, that's already starting to go into motion in the world at large, yes, but at the same time, Jinbe is not someone who just does something for no reason, and to say that he's simply along for an adventure, that's not Jinbe's style. Yes, he owes a lot to Luffy and his crew, but wouldn't he have just as much of an impact staying on Fishman Island? Staying with the Sun Pirates? No. There's something deeper going on with Jinbe's way of thinking. And moving forward, we will definitely start to see more and more of that as we grow closer to the end of the series. Jinbe sees the potential of the Straw Hat crew. Jinbe sees the potential of Luffy. Jinbe sees the change that Luffy can bring to the world if allowed to roam it. Jinbe sees that Luffy can change things in ways that most people can't, and that Luffy will rock the foundation of this world and be able to reform it in some way. Not overly drastically by himself, but in a way that others will be able to pick up the pieces and make something better as a whole. And the same thing I feel goes for Carrot, as well as Pedro. Honestly, looking back at Pedro's interaction, his early interaction with Roger, that statement that one day Pedro would have his time in the spotlight, for it to simply be written off as him sacrificing himself so that Luffy and his crew could get the poneglyphs, or even just help Sanji and stuff like that. It feels too small. Something about that all just feels way too small scale. But even if I'm wrong about this, I still feel like there's some kind of connection, even if I'm wrong. If his death was the inspiration for Carrot to join the crew or become somewhat of a greater help to the crew somewhere in the future, I feel like that's what's ultimately going to make her presence in the series significant as a whole. But there's still some part of me that feels like that connection with the crew is still there. Because Oda doesn't just do things for no reason. When you get to Zou, the first thing you see Carrot is capable of doing, she's able to hold her own somewhat in a fight, and she serves as a lookout. If you've been in the One Piece community for any extent of time, you know that we've always thought, is there going to be someone designated as a lookout? Personally, I never really considered that for a little bit, up until people started arguing having a little bit of a scout or someone who could see maybe further than Usopp or has a little bit better of a sense. Because honestly, a lot of the Straw Hats take turns as lookout. But this was especially kind of brought home when you saw Pedro doing the exact same thing. Because during the Zou arc, there comes a point where Nekomamushi, who seems very capable, he is very up there in terms of ability, as Pedro, who goes up to the highest point. That's Pedro's thing. He's called Pedro of the Treetops Pedro. He's always going up to the highest point, keeping an eye out. Literally, he's missing one eye. But that's Pedro's thing. And to have these two characters who primarily do this to join on to the crew, well, to help out the crew in retrieving Sanji, Pedro would have been enough, honestly, if it was just Pedro. But to also have Carrot, who, and this is mostly just going off of the manga, forget the anime who drives certain things home even worse if you're checking that out. But just going off of the anime, the immediate thing we have is Carrot saying that she always dreamed of going out to sea. And that feels like, man, that feels like early One Piece, when all you really wanted was just to go out to sea and have an adventure, and you'd easily be welcomed on the crew. I mean, let's be real, Usopp's initial goal was very nebulous at the beginning. He didn't have a solid dream. It was just to go out to sea. It was over time that he developed the want to be a brave warrior and even to go to Elbaf. And the role that Pedro took while he was sailing with the Straw Hats of always being the lookout was the constant thing he always did. We see that on a few occasions as we were going forward. But then there comes a point where Carrot says to Pedro, hey, I want to do work on the ship as well. And so she takes over lookout duties, and she does that consistently throughout the course of Whole Cake Island. If you go through the manga or even watch the anime, that is basically most of what Carrot does. She performs the role of a lookout. And over the course of Whole Cake Island, Carrot is not the most necessary character. And I say that as a Carrot lover. She is not the most necessary character. Even when you got towards the end of things, Pedro didn't need to sacrifice himself, honestly. For the most part, you would think maybe we could have held off a little bit, had him go Sulong, and then he sacrificed himself then. He could have been the example of Sulong. Hell, even Peckham's had his Sulong transformation, and as far as we know, he's dead as well. But no, we chose the standout of the moment. Oda chose the standout of the moment to be Carrot, to give her that little time to shine, to give her that little bit of a moment to show off what she could do. And that came after this whole impassioned moment by Pedro where he said that it was important for the Straw Hats to continue their journey. Pedro placed a massive amount of emphasis on the importance of the Straw Hats. From the fact of what Nekomamushi and Inuarashi saw in them, that they actually gave over being able to see the poneglyphs to them, to the fact that Pedro sacrificed his very life for the rest of them. Now granted, that's not uncommon in a lot of arcs that we see over the course of One Piece. Take Pell, or even Coinus' father. They had their sacrifice moments, but Pedro is the one that keeps being brought up time and time again. The influence for Carrot to go Sulong and help to stop the blockade, to help the Straw Hats move forward, as well as the motivation for Nekomamushi to go after Perospero in order to get revenge for Pedro. But Pedro emphasized that the Straw Hats would bring forward the dawn of the new world, that they represented the dawn. Yet another species that saw the Straw Hats as some kind of bringer of the next stage of the world. Which is why it's been very frustratingly odd that Carrot went from having all this emphasis kind of placed upon her to suddenly being more and more in the background over the course of Wano. And even in Onigashima, because over the course of Zou as well as Wano, she bonded well enough with the crew. There seemed to be something there. There seemed to be something that Oda was doing. And again, I'm speaking specifically after having combed through the manga for those moments. Moments she bonded with Chopper, with Nami, with Luffy. Those were the core three that she mostly had her moments with. And let's be real, a lot of the Straw Hats don't always deeply bond with the rest of the crew when they're having their initial story arc. But with, Brook having helped her out on several occasions, as well as the fact that Pedro sacrificed his life to essentially make it so that they could get Sanji out of there, so that he could escape safely. That feels like that means something more than just, okay, we've had our little adventure, Carrot, you go off and do your own thing. And with all the talk that I've heard from people saying, oh, she'll create a new Nox Pirates, or maybe she'll have some form of somewhat of an importance in Zoe from here on out, that feels like a step down from everything that she's experienced up until now. Hell, the fact that she couldn't even take down Perospero with the help of Wanda feels like a step down from everything that we've seen for the character up until this point. All because of that emphasis that Oda gave Roger to give to Pedro, that his time will come, and for his time to be sacrificing himself for the Straw Hats, and for that sacrifice to have an impact on Carrot, where she's constantly trying to get one over on Perospero because of that sacrifice. I feel like to have it end with her not even getting a win over on Perospero, for it to be Nekomamushi who gets that win, it makes everything that happened in terms of Pedro and Carrot feel hollow. There has to be something more to it. There has to be something that helps out the mink race in general, because it's obvious that something about the Void Century ties in with Zunisha. And at some point, Zunisha will be able to come to its ultimate rest. And I feel as though not having a mink along for the ride to bring emphasis to whatever is going on with Zunisha would be a poor choice. I don't see Nekomamushi going along with them. I don't see Inuarashi going along. I don't even see them going out to sea. They have a kingdom to take care of, a people to look after, if they don't die in battle. And even if they were to both die in battle, I see at most Wanda or Sicilian or both taking over the rule of Zoe to some degree. I don't even see Carrot creating a new Nox Pirates, because Carrot is so inexperienced at sea, and Pedro made that very known, that it was his inexperience that ended up getting him caught in Big Mom's territory and ending his journey early. There definitely feels like there's something to Carrot's presence in all this. Carrot has been presented as a fairly unique light in Zoe that just feels like it's waiting to go out to sea, because that's what she wants to do. At this point, not only is it her want to go out to sea to have this grand adventure, very much like Odin and Nekomamushi and Pedro and Inuarashi, they all wanted to go out, have this great adventure. But she's also the only mink who fights with those weird gauntlets. And it feels like, why give her that unique thing if she wasn't going to be more prominent in the story going further outside of Whole Cake Island? Would that really have been it? But I get what you're maybe saying. I prefer Yamato. I prefer Yamato to be the one to join the Straw Hats. And I get that. Yamato came into these stories like a bat out of hell. Yamato's very presence in the story is a whirlwind of lore and backstory. From the sheer fact that Yamato is the son of Kaido. Like, yo, that is already a very important thing. But to also have Yamato be the progeny of Kaido, we see a lot of, and despite the fact that Yamato really wants to be Odin, we see a lot of Kaido in Yamato. From Yamato's toughness to those weird horns that Yamato has. Again, possibly alluding to a race that has some connection with, I believe, Oars, these ancient giants that they were trying to create way back when, which I think was the whole purpose behind the capture of Kaido. He has some DNA of ancient giants in his being because he's a descendant of one of those, and so is Yamato, a descendant of an ancient giant race, something akin to Oni, who might have even ruled over ancient Wano. Hell, the reason why a lot of Oars' race were called continent pullers. People have alluded to the fact that Wano looks like a mass of land that was brought together of various different continents or islands. The innate power that Yamato has. And it's not just Yamato and Kaido. We see it amongst the various different members of the Beast Pirates. If you look no further than the likes of Page 1, Ulti, or Black Maria, those horns that they have aren't ornaments. Hell, in the cover page that we just saw for chapter 1018, you have Ulti taking off Page 1's hat, and he has horns underneath. Those horns are connected to his head. There is something about some of Kaido's forces who have these horns that seem to allude to some ancient race. A lot of people have thought that Onigashima was the actual skull of an ancient continent puller, and it's hard to argue with that because we've never seen a race in One Piece other than Oars' race who actually had those weird abnormal horns. There is definitely some connection with Kaido and Oars' race. Even if it's just being that he is a human and ancient giant hybrid. Yamato definitely has some kind of tie-in with all of that. From the experiments for the numbers to even potentially having some correlation with Elbath. Because we know that all of the people of Elbath, well, most of the warriors of Elbath, love to wear helmets with horns and the like. Maybe that's some allusion to the giants of old. Because we have yet to get any backstory for Kaido. And that's what I'm most deeply questioning. Because both Kaido as well as Yamato have this deep interest in the history of the world to some degree. With Kaido, after defeating Luffy for the who knows how many time around, telling him, "So you couldn't be Joy Boy?" What does Kaido know of the legend of Joy Boy? Why would Kaido care anything about that? Kaido only ever seems to take an interest in power and strength, and yet all we've ever known of any story of Joy Boy seemed to be one of peace. So what was the connection there? Not to mention, in terms of Yamato, Yamato has read the entire travel log of Odin. Yamato knows things that would probably shake the foundation of the One Piece world at large. Hell, even Momonosuke reading that travel log is immediately like, oh, this means I cannot die. I certainly must not die. What was it that Yamato read? And Yamato already knows the significance that Luffy presents, hence why he wants to be on Luffy's ship, why he puts so much faith in Luffy, willing to stand up against his father that has kept him down for so long, but is willing to put so much faith in the capabilities of not just Luffy, but Momonosuke as well. What is it that Yamato knows? And why does Yamato also mention the dawn? Yamato believes that Momonosuke will also be integral to bringing forth the dawn of the world. Yamato has this white-hot determination because of the words of the long-dead Odin to make sure that Momonosuke and Luffy are able to defeat Kaido and open the borders of Wano. You have all these countries who are in some way isolated, some way, shape, or form, from Fishman Island to Zou to Wano, all in isolation, all cut out off from the rest of the world in some way, shape, or form. Not meaning that a member of those countries can't leave, it's just made it very difficult to get to them. And this weird relevance that continues to be pushed on the future. A future that all three of these countries, these races, seem to be vaguely aware of, to be waiting for, to be anticipating. And it all seems to do with Luffy to some degree. It's because of a lot of this that I would love to have all three of them on the crew. All three of them seeking this moment where the world becomes a more open place. This dawn that they're seeking. This sun that they're waiting to see the rise of. This moment of joy and laughter to be brought to the world. But at the same time, I know that that might not be the case. That Carrot or Yamato is going to be left behind to some degree. Because Oda has put it out there that Luffy only wants 10 crewmates, and there's only room for one more person. And while it seems so clear that it's going to be Yamato, mostly just because Yamato has made the statement, has already put in the request, Carrot has also shown that she wants to come aboard, that she wants to make that journey, and also now, because of the sacrifice of Pedro, also has that reasoning as to why she wants to go forward with this. And between the two of them, Carrot has spent the time, but Yamato also knows each of the Straw Hat crewmates because he has been so attentive of the news around the world. But at the same time, I would also love it if Carrot just stowed away like she did before, went along anyway, because there's definitely enough of a story here that it feels like there's an importance to all three of them being present towards the finale of it all, to relay the story to their people, to see with their own eyes how Luffy, the next pirate king, brought forth the dawn of a new world. I hope you have stuck with me up until this conclusion, and if you have, I thank you so much. I know that this theory is out there banana balls, but I truly believe in this with the entirety of my being. The more we go forward from here on out, the more and more this whole legend of the sun, the dawn, laughter, and the opening of places that were closed off before to the rest of the world becomes more and more prevalent. This idea of acceptance, no matter what your race, culture, or family may be, has very much been a very driving and important factor in the world of One Piece. And I feel as though having these three characters on board fleshes things out, if only just a little bit more, brings that much more importance to everything. And to exclude even one of them kind of shortens something that could be that much grander. But what do you think in the comment section below? Do you feel that I might be on the money about any of these three? That ultimately they are all waiting for the same thing, all seeking the same thing, and that's why all of them should be on Luffy's crew to some extent? Or do you feel that I missed the mark with any one of them? That ultimately I'm being delusional? Or that I simply just can't have it all and Yamato or Carrot just has to go to make room for the other? It's really hard to tell with the way that Oda has been writing things, but at the same time, that's why so much of this feels plausible, because Oda has really opened the door to all these possibilities, to all this lore, to all this history, to all this potential. And I would just hate to see him not take advantage of any of the things that it feels like he's set up for any of these characters. But if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications for more One Piece theories. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.